Hello, I'm Simon Bestwick, and I'm here to tell you a story. But tonight it's not going to be one of my own stories. This story is for Lex Jones's Christmas calendar of seasonal horror tales, and this one is written by Dani Brown, the Queen of Filth herself. It's called The Face of God. And so without further ado, I'm going to get on with it. Snow fell outside the windows. It never became any deeper, yet it never melted away. It gave credibility to the illusion of cold on a snowed-in day, and day it always was. Even with the pregnant clouds, the sky was bright. Popper ran down the stairs, knocking decorations set on the railings. They reeked of that new plastic smell, fresh out of their box and hung with care. "Today's the day," he declared. The family forgot what Popper was waiting for. They weren't even sure if he knew anymore, if he ever had. He pushed little Suzie out of the way to fetch the mail. Red and green ribbons kept her pigtails in place. His boots never became wet walking through the snow. The family wondered why he bothered putting them on and spending the time to lace them up. Each member was guilty of bundling up warm to go outside. Old habits refused to die. The driveway and path never required shoveling, even with the snow coming up to Popper's knees. Walking through it took no longer than walking across clean astroturf. The road sat buried beneath layers of snow, but it never needed to be ploughed. No cars attempted to drive past on their way to parties, where they pretend to make merry and humour the in-laws. The lines of coke were snorted off their own coffee tables at home. They lacked the sparkle of the snow sat on the road. No delivery trucks filled with groceries or presents needed to use the road. Presents sat tied up in ribbon under trees. Fridges and pantries were fully stocked. Fresh milk sat on the doorstep like it always did. No one bothered to bring it in, and it never froze. Little Suzie stood up without a bruise. Every day she stood in her father's way. Every day he pushed her aside like it was rehearsed, instead of the same clumsy placement and repetitive action, all while wearing the same winter dress. "What's the script for today?" Peter rolled his eyes, and the dog barked. "Same as yesterday, little sis." Popper returned from the roadside mailbox with the same disappointment on his face and brushed the snow off his shoulders. Mother swept it out the front door. Her broom never lost any bristles. She never whispered, "Down with the patriarchy," under her breath, but instead did all the housework with a smile until someone touched the devilled eggs. "Those are for the guests." That was stuck in the perpetual land of be there soon. The scent of fresh-cut pine from the Christmas wreath filled the room when Mother slammed the door with some subconscious memory of torching her bra and refusing to marry, looking to intrude on the happy family Christmas with the guests that will be there soon. The snow never settled on it. When she turned back around, her smile briefly appeared to be a snarl. No baby photos sat in a garland on the mantel. It was always filled with a plastic nativity scene designed to look like ceramic. The baby photos sat in the box the garland came in so that they wouldn't gather dust or snow. Sometimes the snow fell inside the house. No one bothered to check if they actually were there. When little Suzie and Peter thought their parents weren't looking, they gave the presents a little shake and heard them rattle. Peter dreamt of a virtual world of flashing lights and stolen cars. Little Suzie knew the only ponies in those boxes would be in neon colours, and she'd have to keep them safe from middle-aged man. Ornaments and plastic candles glittered. The scene looked like it belonged in a magazine. The scent of hot chocolate and peppermint filled the house with denial to the outside world. Imagined pine scent came free. Logs flickered in the fireplace. They never gave off any heat. That didn't stop Papa from rubbing his hands together and then holding them up to the fire while he squatted on the rug that was meant to catch embers. Sometimes snow fell down the chimney, but it never put the fire out. Magazine readers never realised the entire scene was staged. The neighbour's home sat lit up in the distance. Try as they might, little Suzie and Peter never made it that far with their sledge. Every time they thought they saw the tinkle of plastic designed to look like crystal ornaments on the pine tree in front of the house, they found themselves back home in their beds. Their sledge left on the front lawn where there was a little hill to ride it into the road. The neighbours' lights never went out. Shapes swirled out in the snow, never taking form. The sky grew darker with each passing day. The sunbeams stopped poking through the snowstorm because the sky took on a hint of impenetrable grey. Attempts to knock on the neighbour's front door took on a new level of importance. Mother sat beneath the Christmas tree when little Suzie came downstairs. "My pigtails hurt." She pulled at her ribbons. Mother didn't care. Mother pulled at the ribbons on the Christmas presents instead. "Hey, that's mine," Peter declared. Mother tore off the wrapping paper, ripping off a snowman's smiling head. "It isn't Christmas yet," the children said. "It is never Christmas. It never will be Christmas." Little Suzie pulled at the ribbons holding her pigtails together without the luck Mother experienced with the present. Beneath all the wrapping paper sat a plain cardboard box. Peter thought he saw something in little Susie's hair. Mother lost a fingernail opening the box, and for what? There wasn't a present inside. The rattle made when little Suzie and Peter had shaken the presents was made by old animal bones and teeth. Mother threw the box at the fireplace and stormed outside. Little Suzie pulled at her hair. It never looked anything less than perfect. Her grimace could easily be mistaken for a smile. Peter tried his best to help, even if he was just trying to satisfy his own curiosity. From the right angle and with a squint, little Suzie had blonde bugs in her hair. The first crack appeared in the sky. Little Suzie woke with bugs squirming on her pillow. She swallowed them before Peter noticed. Peter was wrapped in his own problems. A sore on his leg refused to heal, but it didn't bleed. The crack went unnoticed. It didn't take long for another crack to follow. It didn't disturb the grey sky and the never-ending snowstorm. Green fuzz traced each crack. The snow took on a green hue in the grey light. The family remained oblivious to the goings-on around them. Little Suzie didn't think she could eat any more still squirming bugs. The sore on Peter's leg stole his attention. The little house was without a bathroom, so he hid in the closet to scratch. Mother ran out of presents to unwrap. She was used to the animal bones now. Papa stood slack-jawed at the mailbox, waiting for the postman to never arrive. The flicker of logs in the fireplace, subdued with a faint hint of green and mouldy bones of small animals, didn't let off any light. Green fuzz tainted the falling snow. It never was the type of snow that melted once it landed on a tongue. The devilled eggs took on the first hint of mould. "Those are still for the guests." Wallpaper peeled around the corners. Limp Christmas decorations hung from the banister. Mother tossed and turned in bed. Papa tried to comfort her and woke up the next morning with an ashen face. He skipped the trip to the roadside mailbox with the dawning realization that whatever he was waiting for would never arrive. When little Suzie tried to pick up the small animal bones littering the front room, mould swallowed her hand. She gave up, trying to hide the squirming bugs in her hair. Peter picked up animal bones lacking in green fuzz and sharpened one to a point. It made picking at the sore on his leg easier, since it had swallowed his fingernails. A light flashed through the grey, while Papa paced in socks through the snow. "Well, that's Morse Code. I didn't realize anyone knew that anymore." His voice sounded excited. It didn't match his face, and of course the entire family heard him regardless of where they were on the property. Mother joined him outside with a pen and paper. "It's the neighbours," she said, as if that wasn't obvious. She'd been at the mulled wine again. That was meant to be for the guests, along with the mouldy devilled eggs. She turned in the direction. She couldn't see the neighbours through all the murk, dirty snow, and green-tinged sun. "What's going on?" the message from the neighbours read. "Quick, go get a light. They won't see us through all the murk." Peter ran back to the house, pausing only once to scratch at the sore on his leg. They didn't have any portable lights. He looked at the Christmas tree, but the fairy lights needed to be plugged into the mains. The fireplace twinkled beneath the growing glare of green fuzz, wrappings, and animal bones. It took on a rank smell. Peter inhaled in disgust, doubled over, and pulled his jumper over his nose and mouth. He grabbed the log from the fire. It shone in orange beneath all the growths. The mould climbed his fingers with such strength that he didn't need to hold on to the log. He didn't have any say in the matter, but the small animal bone was safe in his pocket. Mother stripped off her cardigan while he was inside, baring her shoulders for the family to see. Boils leaked slow-moving black pus from her shoulder blades. She snatched the log from Peter, taking his fingers with her. He looked at his hands and whirled away from pain. Skin from his palms and wrists came away with his fingers, but there wasn't any blood. He wiped them across his trousers, trying to relieve the itch. Mother held the cardigan over the log and removed it, a series of Morse Code. She didn't say anything about Peter's fingers. Black pus from Mother's shoulder blades was carried into the air with the green-stained snow. Little Suzie shielded her eyes with her hands and squinted at the neighbours. "I can't see their house. I can always see their house." Traces of green fuzz crossed her face. When she pulled her hand away, she ripped away her skin. Mould swallowed her skull and crept into her blonde pigtails tied with bows. The bugs squirmed through it. The neighbours responded to Mother's Morse Code message. Papa's jaw came off without any blood, to land in the swirling snow while her light still flashed. Gravity refused to claim it. Snow fell through the skin, flapping in the non-existent wind. The dog wagged its tail, catching a glint of a perfect white tooth in its eyes. It jumped up and did gravity's job. Visibility went further down the longer the family spent trying to send and receive Morse Code messages to and from their neighbours. The sky fractured along the cracks already there. It didn't take long for mould to build up. The family craned their necks. Mother's head fell off. Without gravity to claim it, it didn't roll along the ground, but instead floated around the middle of her back, playing tricks with the slow-moving black pus. The dog was too occupied gnawing on Papa's jawbone to go for Mother's head. No one questioned how their feet remained on the snow. The earth jolted. The sun poked through the grey murkiness and green fuzz. The snow briefly held suspended where each flake was, spewing green spores. Mother's eyes looked up from her head, even as her hands continued to send code to the neighbours. Everything moved to the side, including the house and trees. Little Suzie floated through time and space with the mould gluing her eyes shut. Her mouth was sealed, trapping her scream. The family dog refused to let go of the jawbone. The contents of the house made no sounds. It suddenly stopped before moving into the neighbour's garden, held back by a force field that wasn't invisible but sat unnoticed until now. The trees poked the sky sideways until more cracks appeared. Snow tumbled to the ground, followed by green tendrils that could have been smoke, but were, in fact, fuzzy spores. The trees took on a deflated appearance. Little Suzie landed on the hard ground beneath the snow. Then she too shifted to the side. Bugs landed on her shoulders and squirmed down her spine. The snow fell to the side and ignored the windows on the house. They were there more for decoration than actual purpose. They never had any glass. Mother screamed when her head landed in her lap. "I don't know you people!" Papa's scream came next. When little Susie's bugs landed in his lap, he grabbed her ankle and pulled at him. "Where am I? Who are you?" His voice was slurred due to missing the lower half of his face. He gave Suzie a little bit of shaking, as if that would help her answer. Little Suzie mumbled behind her gag of mould. Black liquid leaked from beneath her arms and soiled her dress, seeping into Popper's hands. Peter had no fingers to grab onto a branch as a rush of gravity pulled him towards the house. He went right through one window on the side, all the way to the other side. His feet smashed against something he couldn't see, until the cracks climbed into others. Mother kicked her legs at little Suzie and screamed, "I hate children! Get away from me!" Little Suzie squirmed in Popper's hands. He wasn't bothered by the black liquid or bugs. The sound of glass shattering cut through Mother's loud complaints. Peter fell through the cracks. Plastic shards implanted themselves in his legs without any blood. They managed to miss the sore that itched like some fresh hell sent to torment him into the abyss. He twitched fingers that weren't there to grab onto any debris before falling into the black abyss. The house fell past him. The abyss held a gravitational pull. Peter looked over in the midst of it all and saw the neighbour's wife. He never knew her name or the names of her husband and 2 children. It seemed odd to live next door to someone for as long as he could remember and not even know their names. She was missing an arm. The family next door owned a pair of cats instead of a dog. The abyss swallowed them next. Their yowls pierced every other sound. Another man Peter had never seen before was claimed next. A hamster in a ball bounced off Peter's neck. It didn't snap off his head, but instead left him with a bend. Faint glimpses of computers and fast cars chased each other in Peter's mind, only he wasn't Peter, but a 40-something advertising executive from Manhattan. He liked to take his car out of the city and just drive with the nose candy pumping through his bloodstream. He never noticed the thud as he ran over the small girl before wrapping the car around a tree. The same thoughts passed through Mother's head. She gripped it tightly in her hands, determined not to let it go, her eyes shut against the cracking sky. Only she wasn't an advertising executive for Manhattan, but a schoolteacher with a sheer hatred of children. She locked the door to her classroom and shoved her cashmere sweater between the cracks. Ventilation was poor in the school. Her life didn't turn out the way she wanted. She went to Hollywood with a dream of becoming a star. Too many cum shots down the back of her throat, and she'd had enough. After the plastic surgery, the only place that would hire her was the run-down elementary school in the worst neighbourhood. Parents managed to recognise her through the crystal meth haze. She came to hate them too. Wet snow landed on her eyelids. When it hit her mouth, it found that special space in the back of her throat before vacating her neck, leaving behind a trail of fuzzy green mould and the memories of who she was. The faces of all the children she'd killed. An entire overstuffed class filled, chased her into the abyss. You must have been exceptionally evil to get stuck in the body of a dog. But the dog was no more evil than little Suzie. Both were guilty of the usual boardroom cost-cutting that led to people dead. Popper was a different matter entirely. The local preacher. His church grew bigger with donations conned out of worshippers. He signed a contract with the televangelist network and became richer. It was relations in his swimming pool and getting to know himself and the water filter a bit better that took him out. The same things he preached against. "What is it with these snow globes?" A giant face stared down on Popper as he clung without a jaw to a limp tree. The face of God stared back at him. A God that shouldn't exist. "I don't know. The old man had entire rooms stuffed with them," another man replied. So, I hope you enjoy that, and have a Merry Christmas. See you all.